Well, they say that love doesn't always last. So are you worried that you may be at risk for cheating on your partner? Some studies say that if your parents did, you're more likely to do that. Well, there's a quick test to find out if you are prone to cheating. Joining us now on Good Day is our relationship expert, Dr. Rick Brown. Good to see you once again. Thanks for coming in.
Good.
Okay, when I saw this list come out yesterday, I thought, well, that's interesting, but how legit is it? You saw the list here. What do you think about it?
Oh, I think there's a lot of truth to it, that when you find yourself excited, looking forward to seeing somebody, maybe even dressing in a certain way that might excite this other person, that's a good sign.
So you don't have an intention of cheating initially, but you're now incorporating these behaviors that are going to lead you down that road. Is that right?
Right. I think people often get into it innocently, but it usually grows out of some sense of feeling like something's missing in my own relationship.
Yeah, I think we have some of these. Let's go down some of the list here. Some of these, like you said, you look forward to seeing that person more than you look forward to maybe being around your spouse.
Right.
That one happens a lot in a workplace, I would assume, right?
Right. And you get excited about that person. You start thinking about this person. Again, you may even dress in a certain way because you know you're going to be around that person. You start having fantasies about that person. That's a pretty good sign.
Next up, you talked about dressing up. Also, this other one here, you hear this a lot in relationship counseling where you're telling somebody else more about your problems than you're actually talking to your spouse about.
Right. And I actually have said, I think that what people are looking for when they get into these kind of relationships, I think they're really looking for a therapist. Because if you think about it, they often start where you would go to somebody and you would talk about what's going on in your life, and usually that person will listen to you and they show some understanding, they show some empathy, but before long you realize you're not really with a therapist, you're with a pseudo-therapist.
Is that one of those moments where the trigger should go off immediately saying, wow, why am I talking to this person about my relationship issues more than somebody else?
Right, that's a good sign, that if you find yourself talking about your own personal problems with your own relationship with that person, that's a sign that you're probably sliding into a dangerous area.
The next one on their list here is you flirt with him or her in these cases, where you find yourself, I don't know, saying, doing things that you wouldn't normally do, right?
And you usually know that. I mean, I think we know inside when we're doing something that's kind of crossing that line. I think we have a kind of built-in sense about that. One of the ways to think about it is, are you doing something that if your partner was sitting next to you, they would feel uncomfortable about? And if the answer comes back, yeah, I think they would, that's a pretty good sign.
And the fifth one here, I think this is almost like an era of Facebook where something happens in your life and you want to tell somebody and you tell the person on Facebook or your friend quicker than you tell your wife.
Than you tell your partner. Then that's a really good sign, by the way, of what I think is at the deeper end of it, and that is that you're really feeling somewhat disconnected to your own partner. And out of that sense of disconnection, you're yearning to feel connected with somebody, and so that's what usually drives that. And so I think it's a good sign that there's probably something missing at home.
So if you get into that point where you're doing these behaviors, you find yourself wanting to talk to another person, you find yourself telling them first about events on Facebook, is the relationship over at that point, or how do you get it back?
No, I don't think it's over, but I think you ought to recognize that's a sign that something's probably not right at home. And you've got to find a way to address that, whether you can have the kind of relationship where you can go to your partner and say, you know, I'm kind of concerned and I'm worried that I've been kind of finding myself feeling or thinking, before you actually get involved in something like that, to be able to talk about that. Now, if you can't talk about that because the relationship is so disconnected, that's where it'd be very helpful to go talk to somebody about that.
And I'm curious your thoughts on this one, because you do so much relationship counseling. I was reading on the internet people saying, well, my father cheated or my mother cheated, so I'm predisposed to that. Do you believe that, or is that just a learned behavior where all of a sudden they believe it because mom and dad did this?
Yeah, I don't think that happens because it's genetic or because mom and dad did this, but I think it is a sense of people not having good models of what it really means and looks to be connected. And so they lived in families where parents were disconnected, and then parents, as a result of that, did those kind of behaviors. And so that's the model they have. They don't really have a good model of what it really means and looks like to be connected to each other.
All right, Dr. Rick Brown, our relationship expert. Always good to see you. Thanks for coming in.
All right, partner.